This is Kathy Deaton from Fan the Flame Ministry sharing with you nuggets of godly wisdom. This episode is titled The Wilderness. It's where God grows and refines you. The word Exodus means going out. So the book of Exodus records the redemption of Israel through the whole process from Egyptian bondage to Canaan, the wonderful land that God had promised to give Israel. Now God had plans to form a nation of people that would totally belong to Him. He wanted to show them a new way of living and bless them so much that the godless and heathen nations around them would take notice of all His wonderful blessings upon them. In this time, many of the people worshipped multiple gods, one for each area of their life, home, work. They would have idols made of gold and silver and place them in a prominent place in their home. God wanted to show them that there was absolutely no comparison between the silver and gold gods they worshiped and the one true God who was invisible to their eyes, but very visible in His love, guidance, mercy, and compassion for them. I want to give you a quick summary of the genealogy of the nation of Israel. Many years before Israel became a nation, God told Abraham to leave his home and country and go to the place that would become Canaan. He was to live in that place as a sojourner and may have never truly understood the significance of what God told him to do. But he has been recognized down through history as Israel's father of faith. God told him that his descendants would be so many that they would be like the stars in the sky. They couldn't be counted. Abraham had a son named Isaac, and Isaac had a son named Jacob. So Jacob was Abraham's grandson, and it would be his sons that would become the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel. God had told Abraham years before that Israel would live in bondage in Egypt. So now, because of a terrible famine, Jacob and his entire family of around 70 moved to Egypt so they could obtain food. From there, they grew rapidly and had become 2 to 3 million people by the time they left Egypt. To accomplish the great things He had in mind for His new nation, God chose Moses and his brother Aaron to lead His people to the land He had promised Abraham many years before. So there were 7 generations from Abraham to Moses. The book of Exodus covers the journey of the Israelites from Egypt into the wilderness. God produced daily miracles for Israel so they could see firsthand how He intended to take care of them. God would form this new nation on His terms, so therefore it would be like nothing that man had seen up until this time. This nation, instead of an earthly king, would be led by an invisible God that would care for every need of His chosen people. God intended to give them great blessings and wanted in return that they would love Him with all their hearts, souls, and minds and would make serving Him the most important thing in their lives. But God knew that Israel had been under the rule of Egypt for so long that it would take some time to change their way of thinking. For over 400 years, they had been in an almost totally heathen land which worshipped many gods instead of the one true God. And they were not spiritually ready to possess this great land God had promised to give them. First, they must learn to trust Him with every aspect of their lives. God wanted them to learn to trust Him so much that they would automatically look to Him for help first, no matter how great the obstacles around them seemed to be. In the book of Leviticus, they were given new laws on how to be sanitary, sacrifices they were to make, detailed instructions for how to build a portable tabernacle, laws for governance of so many people. They were given many exact instructions. So this new way of life would be very different, but it would also be exceedingly better than the one they had known for so many years in Egypt. But at this point, they couldn't see and comprehend this much better life that God had in store for them. All they could see was where they had come from and what they could see now, right around them. But God seemed to take them further and further into the wilderness instead of leading them directly to Canaan, the land of milk and honey that He had promised to give them. God usually accomplishes things in a much different way than you and I would do them. And He immediately started to give them tests to show them and prove that without a doubt He would meet their every need. He supplied manna, which was their food for them, for 40 years while they were in the wilderness. And He also made their clothes and shoes last for the whole time they were there. Everything about their trip was supernatural because they had to totally depend on God or they would have starved. It is estimated that there were between 2 and 3 million of them, or maybe more. God met their every need as they ended up staying in the wilderness for 40 years. But if the Israelites had learned to truly depend on God and trust Him for every need, they probably would have spent less than 2 years in the wilderness. But they refused to believe that God could do what He said He would do. So now they had to wait for a whole generation of people to die so that the new generation could possess the land God had promised. And that took 38 long years, I'm sure, for them. God still works the same way as He did in the day of the Israelites. He reveals His plan for your life, and then He prepares you to carry out His plan. As you're waiting for that to happen, it may seem that you also have been led into the wilderness, just like the Israelites. But God's purpose is to send tests your way so that He can show you He will always be there to meet your every need. You can depend on Him. Most of us don't like tests, and we try to avoid them any way possible. But tests are what God uses to reveal who He is and also reveal who you are. Every test you pass helps you to draw closer to God. His desired outcome for your life is supernatural strength, growth, and maturity as a Christian, so that He can use you in whatever way He desires. I'm not sure that I will ever like going through tests, but now I do know that God gives them to me for my own good. But your trip through the wilderness doesn't have to be as long as that of the Israelites. You can make the choice each day to learn to hear and obey God. He always wants you to receive His best, but to receive it, you will have to wait for His timing. And yes, you might have to wait for some things for a while, but once you get His best, you'll never want to settle for anything less. Real peace comes from knowing that you are in the center of God's will for your life. God said that He will never leave you nor forsake you if you're one of His children. He tests you in order to remove the things from your life that keep Him from being able to use you as He desires. When the dross is burned off in the refining fire, all that is left is the pure gold. It is at this point that God can start to use you in ways that you could never have imagined. Many people think that God is irrelevant to everyday life, and following Him is boring and mundane. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could be further from the truth. Making the choice to surrender my life to God has been exciting, hard, awesome, tearful, sad, peaceful, and many other things but it has never, never been boring and mundane. This is Kathy Deaton from Fan the Flame Ministry, sharing with you nuggets of godly wisdom. Please check out my blog at whogodis.com and sign up for my monthly newsletter. I've also written Handbook for Victorious Christian Living, which gives practical ways to learn to hear the Holy Spirit and get grounded in the foundations of the Christian faith. I would also love to interact with you on social media, and you can sign up for podcast in the iTunes store under either Kathy Deaton or Nuggets of Godly Wisdom. Thank you so much for listening, and may God richly bless you as you seek to follow Him.